Hello, and welcome everyone. Here we are, Industry 4.0 Club and IoT Coffee Talk. We have a little joint session, kind of as a extension of a great session we had last week, Thursday, with two great people from IoT Coffee Talk. We got Leonard Lee from NextCurve and Rob Tiffany from Digital Insights, who are also two of the, I guess, maybe the most recurring hosts on IoT Coffee Talk. At least when I see it, you're always there. So we got the greatest of the greatest here, and then of course we got Ira, my co-host from Industry 4.0 Club, here as well. So thank everyone for joining us. Thank you guys for joining us here on our live stream. As I said, we're going to kind of continue the discussion or talk from last time. We had so much fun, and we thought, hey, we can't stop here. We got to kind of continue it. So we had Rob and Leonard were at CES and was giving us some insights on what they saw, what was interesting, and then I think the other thing that might also trigger this that I was trying to record it last time and failed.
Yeah,
miserably.
you did. You
We
did.
weren't going to call you out yet. We weren't going to call you out, but
Yeah,
you know,
but
What a
I did
tragedy.
myself, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But by the way, I want to say something. That was some pretty funky music you guys play at the beginning. I like that. But it's not as good as bad karaoke that we play on IoT Coffee Talk.
I know. You guys are exceptional there, especially
Wow.
your guitar solos there.
We're not exceptional at very many things, and so at least we have that.
Yeah. Well,
I like setting this up as a crossover event. That sounds
Yeah.
like when you see
Yep.
really bad TV shows on at night, and it's like tonight we're doing a crossover with ER and
Yep.
NYPD Blue.
Yeah. There you
Crossover
go.
event.
well, this way I can call on you. I can go like, "Hey, Rob," or "Hey,
Yeah.
Leonard."
Yeah.
We can react to each other. Yeah. This is cool.
So
This is gonna be
Leonard is freezing to death in San Diego. It's like
I am.
40s, and
It is.
mayhem is ensuing. They're having to de-ice the streets and stuff like that. They closed all the schools. He doesn't know what to do, man. It's awful.
Yeah. People
But
don't know how to drive
San
the
Diego's always like between 65 and 75, right?
Pretty much. I mean, this is very unusual. I'm freezing right now. My fingers, I can't feel them. And
Yeah,
I
it's
live in
because
San Diego.
his body doesn't understand how to react to those kind of
No, it
temperatures.
doesn't.
But I
Tremendously
totally get it.
foreign
So I used to live in San Diego a long time ago, a lifetime ago, when I was in the Navy, and I remember going through boot camp in San Diego, and it was not freezing. I would shout out to all you poor kids going through Navy boot camp at Great Lakes in Chicago, freezing to death in snow. In the good old days, if you're going to be miserable doing push-ups and running all the time and all that stuff, it's better to be in San Diego with palm trees and beautiful weather.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
I would
not today.
I wouldn't want to be going through Navy SEAL training right now. And
There
God
you
bless
go.
those guys if they are right now.
We need to do a live broadcast from Coronado and see Bud's camp going there, the Bud's training, seeing the guys, running down the beach with a telephone poles on their shoulder and stuff like that. That's awesome stuff, man.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
So I never enrolled at all, but I've been to the Chicago Naval Base as well, or the one close to Chicago. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. But yeah, in the wintertime, I would not like to be there, and especially not outside doing any exercise work at all.
No bueno.
Yeah.
No bueno.
So and Ira, help us remember what we said last time. Well, this might be interesting. Why don't we start off with you guys maybe sharing what you were most impressed by that previous session? I mean, we shared a lot, right? I
think what I was interested or what I'm impressed with is the stuff you saw around the core themes on automotive. I mean, we kind of knew that there's a lot going on in automotive, but when you say it almost looks like an auto show, then it's definitely different, right? And when you hear companies like Qualcomm making a car, Bosch making a car, kind of making a car, I guess, right?
Kind of.
So yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think the announcement that really kind of came out of the blue, it was a little bit of a shocker, was that Sony Honda mobility announcement, right? And then Qualcomm's involved there with Snapdragon. They're going to base a lot of it off of if not all of it, off of Qualcomm's digital chassis portfolio. I mean, I was there at that event, that press event, right, on day 0, and I was like, oh, whoa. But it was hilarious because I got there kind of late and there was like a crap ton of people. And so I was toward the back and they make this announcement and supposedly they were rolling something out. I couldn't see it. So I was like trying to figure out what it is by zooming in on other people's smartphones.
Nice.
And then, yeah, it was a car. Initially, I thought it was going to be like a e-bike or something silly like that, but it's a car. 2025, I think they're going to be taking first orders for the car. So we'll see if it happens. There's a lot of these announcements.
Snapdragon, not just for Android phones anymore, is it?
No, not even.
You know what? It makes sense. You got to keep growing your business, and you know how hard it is when the law of big numbers, when your tech company is so giant, and you still have to have that greater than 10% growth all the time to move your stock price, and it gets harder and harder. And so, Snapdragon for cars is a great way to expand that base of what they're producing down there in San Diego. That's awesome.
It also makes sense, I think, I mean, you got the Apple perspective where it seems like they're going to make their own car, that they're doing everything themselves. It seems like everything to do.
Yeah.
Whereas, if I was a software company like Sony, not really software, but kind of, right, and Qualcomm and whatever, I wouldn't really get into the car business. I would find someone to partner with, right? That makes sense to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I would be making the Walkman car.
Yeah,
Walkman car.
Yeah, it doesn't really go very well. The Walkman car. Is that like the Flintstones when you're kicking your legs to make the car go?
Hey, the car man.
As a marketer in the group, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to spin there, Rob.
Well, no,
we didn't do much market research on that one.
Rob's onto something though. You can call it the Drive Man.
There you go.
Right?
Drive Man, instead of car man.
There you go. Or Ride Man or whatever.
Whatever. Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like a ride share.
$1 billion.
It does like a ride share. But you know what? And I think I probably said it last week. My favorite vehicle there was that giant John Deere sprayer.
Yeah. Yes.
That was spanning.
The other part that's interesting to me is the agriculture aspect as well.
It looked like you could have 10 cars or 20 cars lined up next to each other, and it would be the width of this massive John Deere thing with its 36 cameras and edge computer vision. That was crazy,
Yeah, because you were talking about actually. I was gonna say you were actually talking about the cameras on that actually being able to look and apply just the right amount of water and the right amount of fertilizer and all these kind of things. Yeah. It was pretty impressive.
They're from a marketing perspective, they call it see and spray. And and so we talk about, well, not me and some weirdos on farms maybe talk about precision agriculture, since we need to be more precise in what we're in the natural resources we're using. And so that using that computer vision, having all the compute at the edge on the machine, it's too far to get back to the cloud and have it munch on data. And you may not get to the cloud. There may not be connectivity on a farm, as we see all the time, right? In rural areas, it's a mixed bag. And so, it shoots the seed in, and right behind the seed, it's shooting kind of what they think of as like kind of a Kickstarter amount of fertilizer right on the seed to get it going. And so very clever stuff, a big shout out to the people in the small town of Moline, where, that's the funny thing. And I think this is an important overall. So many people think all these brilliant minds and all this great technology are only in Silicon Valley or Seattle or whatever. And it's just not true. There are great, smart innovators all over the place. You just got to dig in and find them. But a lot of times they don't get a lot of press or a lot of props like they need. And yet you've got this agriculture company that's arguably doing as most advanced stuff as you can imagine in Moline. and it's just, I think it's important to show there's great, smart innovators all over the place.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also goes to tell you, when you look at tech, right? Tech is great, but tech not applied is just tech. It needs to be applied. You need to have the foundation. You need to have the expertise in a particular topic. And who better to have that expertise than probably the people in Moline, right? And what they're doing on a regular basis. I mean, I don't know Moline deeply, but I mean, it would make sense that they're doing the type of farming, they're doing these kind of things, so they know, at least have a better idea of the types of yields you need. And then you can find someone to kind of apply that IP, that real knowledge to AI, to vision, to whatever else. But without that, you're just shooting in the dark, hoping for the best.
Yeah. So all those domain experts are way more important than the technology, or maybe I get jaded being in tech so long. The technology is the easy part. It really is. Having that domain knowledge and know what the real problems and how to solve, that's the key thing. And so like when so many of us got into industrial IoT, when I left Microsoft and went to Hitachi to build Lumada, you can't just have techie IT whatever people coming up with these ideas. You got to sit next to the domain experts. And so the only way I could design a great industrial IoT platform with digital twins is I had to go hang out in Japanese factories a lot. And you got to make it real. This whole IoT thing has been so interesting to me because it's a whole lot of people who've never been in a factory, never been on a farm, and yet they're acting all smart, like we got this. It's like, no, you don't got this.
Yeah. or worse, they think they're going to harvest all the data up in the cloud, and that's completely nonsensical. And I mean, Rob, you brought up a great example of why data is not going to go up to the cloud in the volumes people anticipate, because what's happening right now, and and there's this, I don't know, I bump into these other analysts and people in the industry who say, well, edge doesn't exist. Edge computing is nothing. Oh, it's been there. It's like, well, it's changing. And a lot of it is being influenced by what's happening in endpoint computing or on-device computing, right? Edge AI, the ability to take ML and AI workloads and deploy them on a very constrained endpoint device, right? And a lot of these now are standalone. They don't connect to anything. So what you see now is that this whole paradigm of edge computing, which is distributed computing, okay? It's not necessarily, I mean, think of it as client-server computing in a way, but it's done in proximity to an endpoint device. And we talk about this all the time on IoT Coffee Talk. I have a whole column on acceleration economy about this. But it's getting more powerful. And you see that at CES, especially on the consumer side. And one of the really important things that's happening is that you're starting to see some of these privacy first type architectures form where, like, for instance, at Eureka Park, where Rob and I spent some time, there's a company, they're called Tensor AI. They're going to kill me if
TensorFlow,
AI tensors, they do this elderly care monitoring solution where they monitor and use computer vision to detect the posture of a person, let's say that elderly patient or what have you, that they're monitoring. And instead of sending that data feed up to the cloud, which would be costly and difficult anyways, it all it does is it sends alerts based on an algorithm that is built into the endpoint device, that camera, right? And it protects the individual's privacy. And it only conveys to the cloud what needs to be conveyed, right? And I think that's an important.
That sounds like report by exception, right? Or managing by exception.
IoT.
Well, when you're talking about this specific,
it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I want to quickly do a plug here as well. Industry 4.0 is going to be at IME West here, second week of February, where one of the presentation that we are chairing is a company that is actually doing sensors in your clothes. Will detect wrong posture when you're working. So it's like, and we're looking at it with them to see case stories in manufacturing where you could use that for manufacturing workers, so that they can actually understand if they're suddenly, lifting wrong, etc., and be able to identify it. So
That's
without
great.
cameras, this is with sensors, like 3 or 4 sensors in your clothes will be able to identify if you have a good or bad posture when you're doing work. That's good. Cool.
I love that.
See, I love the idea of all this data, whether you're looking at like the posture of someone and doing that analytics, and it's so great, the data in the clothes. But I had written about this, and admittedly I'm the guy on the sidelines that hasn't actually lived it. So Rob, I'm your use case, of kind of what you said before. But when I think about this data that's being produced, if it does all go to the cloud, how soon is it till someone is able to monetize that in some way with an insurance company, whatever else, to create these profiles and connect these databases that we may not want connected in some way, shape, or form, because it could have some unintended consequences. Maybe that's a little bit of tinfoil hat, Ira, which does happen from time to time. I'm sure it'll come out more and more as we have these. I can be that guy for sure. But it is interesting to say, well, if it is there, if it is necessarily a bad actor, but smart actor from a financial sense, but maybe not necessarily the best actor from a data sense. So
yeah, here's Ira. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. Yeah. Leonard and I, many years ago, we were at the IoT Solutions World Congress in Barcelona. I don't know, many years ago, and I remember we spent time with one of the IoT companies called Relayer, a German IoT company, and their story, Ira, was about insurance, and it's interesting. I know you were thinking of the dark side of data getting away in insurance. These guys, because no doubt about it, a whole lot of IoT companies have not made it. They just haven't. Like lots of them haven't. And so in spite of, it's the biggest thing in the world and there's trillions of dollars waiting for you to have, and in spite of all that, but the way they made it was, they were doing, and this is like your business modeling and what's your GTM like? And so they were, like a lot of IoT companies, here's this leak detection thing for your house, because that's a thing. In fact, I've got some IoT leak detection at my house, and they were selling directly, and they were marketing directly to homeowners in Germany, and they were struggling a bit. And one of their folks somehow talked to this German insurance company, and the German insurance company goes, our biggest payouts, the biggest cost we ever have is when there's a flood in a house. It's probably neck and neck with fire, right? And so here's a weird term for a lot of you kids out there, actuaries. There's these actuarial tables. Think of it as statistics. Okay, every insurance company, it's all about actuaries. They looked at all their numbers and they determined that it was worth it for the insurance company to pay for all the IoT tech and put it into their policyholders' homes because the payouts were so off the charts that it actually made financial sense for the insurance company. And that's how Relayer started to succeed as an IoT company. They later did something clever as well. They did insurance policies on the IoT projects themselves. They guaranteed the project. They said, if you do whatever it is, you're going to save this much money or whatever the outcome is. And they would guarantee it. And they put an insurance policy on every project, which also, a lot of people struggle in IoT. They're like, if we could just get a POC, or if we could get to a pilot or get to production. And customers are like, I don't know. As soon as you say, what if I have an insurance policy on this project? Anyway, huge game changer. And so I just went off the deep end with insurance because Ira said the word there. Anyway, in the end, they got acquired by Munich Re, which is an insurance company. And so when we think about IoT, a lot of it is, that safety net, that insurance, that regulation, that whatever, remember what we always say, IoT, we're just replacing or augmenting jobs to be done that usually a human is walking over and looking at a machine, taking a reading, seeing if there's a leak, looking if there's disease on a farm. all we're doing is having sensors do that for us. That's all it is, folks. Absolutely.
You always break it down. You always break it down so simple, and it's true. And I put on my tinfoil hat and go off on the deep end. So
well, everybody's got their thing. It could be aliens. I love that. But it's important to keep it simple for all our audience, because I know a lot of people think, oh, this is crazy tech and I can't understand it. And it's like, no. Like the oldest thing I've ever said, like industrial IoT. In fact, it's like, dude, you're just competing with a guy with a clipboard. That is all you are doing. Don't overthink it. And it's all the same stuff, whether it's REST or MQTT or some file format or having to put a serial port in a PLC and whatever. It's just different file formats and wire protocols. Don't overthink it. It's all exactly the same. And you're just getting data. Is the data valuable? Is it gonna, are you gonna find out the machine's about to burn itself out with that data? Now a lot of things a lot of people don't realize is we've had systems in factories that already do that for years.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of people are like,
at the edge.
Yeah, they're like, what are you new tech people showing up in this factory looking around with your hat on and your little suit and that you don't understand what's going on for the first time in your life? Look at all these Windows 95 computers that we have here connected to PLCs and all these machines. We've been doing this forever. What do you think?
When you're talking about making IoT sense for everybody, I was thinking, I've been watching a lot of lately, like those LinkedIn videos on Lego trying to solve different problems. And I was amazed about what you can do with Legos these days. Like with small motors, can do all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That might be the next step for Lego, right? To put IoT into it too. So that kids at, like teenage age could start building something that's actually connected to something in the cloud. That maybe I'm losing some money because
I think you're on the money. I think you're right there. Everything in a factory, anything you want to process, you could probably figure it out with Legos and motors.
Yeah.
In a miniature way, and I think that's a great way to educate kids to prepare them for that kind of future. And my kids at their high school, they went to, I think their senior year, they were all required to create some elaborate Rube Goldberg thing. Just the most elaborate, like for a science fair, where they have their little things sitting. And they're like, what are we learning by having this bizarre, conveyor belts and the ball rolling and a million different things? So I was like, well, you're learning how we take manual individual processes and we create automation. And we, a factory by its very name means automation. Everything we're doing today, someone used to do manually with their hands a long time ago.
Yep.
And then and then because people are smart, we figured out, oh, well, this little simple machine can do this one task for me, and we just build on that. Just like factories used to be just lots of people. You're going to twist this screwdriver. You're going to do this. And that's how, Henry Ford's going to mass produce cars.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Leonard.
Oh, no. I was, well, why don't you go ahead? What were you going to say?
Last time when you're talking about these different things you do in factory, I was just seeing somebody create a sock washing machine out of Legos with washing them, taking them off to a conveyor belt, drying them off, hanging them, whatever, just with Legos. I'm like, whoa. I mean, people, and these were, I'm sure they're not kids, right? But kids could have done it. And
I love that.
Just getting stuff like that. Yeah.
I thought you were going to go in a different direction. Yeah. And I thought they were going to invent a washing machine that didn't lose that one sock every time.
It doesn't exist. Not real. It's not real.
There's no video on that. Yeah, there's no video on the machine that too. Yeah.
I was really
I could see that it wasn't matching the socks either. So it was just washing them and drying. But yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, one. Oh yeah.
Automation's the thing. We're trying to automate things using our brains to automate stuff. Why do we want to automate stuff? A lot of people worry when you say automation, oh, you're killing jobs or whatever. We've been doing that through the whole history of mankind. In every field you can think of, we've been automating everything, not just in a factory. When you automate something, you can create more of that thing, and you can create them more consistently. They'll be exactly the same every time. You don't have that variability that you would have when a human's doing something manually, right? It could be in a factory on the farm. We invented the plow. We got horses. We invented tractors, combines. That's automation. All that's automation.
Yeah, but
those pivot things that are irrigating in circles, that's automation. What did someone do before that? They're probably out there with a bucket of water.
But when you think, but when you look at what's happening on the consumer side and what we saw at CES, it's a lot. I mean, there's an automation element there, but one of the things that is really quite evident, what the consumer, I guess, universe is trying to do is personalize stuff, right? Make things bespoke, make devices context aware and responsive to what it might perceive is the user's need, right? It was maybe like 2017. One of the things that I profiled was this emerging category of devices that I kind of dubbed. I forgot what the hell I called it. I think it's like a conversational companions. So instead of this is at the time when smart speakers were like a big thing, right? Everyone's saying, "Oh, smart speakers are going to take over everything, and Amazon and Alexa are going to, supplant the iPhone, and you won't have to have a smartphone anymore." Well, it turns out that didn't quite happen. But what we saw were folks who were thinking a little bit outside of the box and realizing, hey, we can leverage something like Alexa and combine it with robotics, and then introduce a bit of humanity to the device by making it sort of interactive, right? It's actually kind of like a companion. So you saw some of those, were startups back in 2017. Now really starting to come to market and find a little bit of scale, I suppose. So you see that primarily in the form of like these like healthcare, elderly care assistants and stuff like that. So it was interesting to see robotics and the let's call it conversational AI kind of come together and produce some what looked like pretty mature products. Do you know?
We saw a bunch of those over, over at the Venetian, the old Sands area, and we saw different levels of maturity. When you went to the Amazon room, they had their little robot with its big eyes, and you're asking it a question, and it's having high latency before it could talk back to you. It was probably talking to AWS, right?
Yeah.
But what was it contending with? Lots of network traffic from thousands of people all there trying to also connect somewhere. You're right. You see that a lot. That was pretty interesting. This whole deal though about
I think Rob, when you were talking about,
go ahead.
Oh, just a quick, Rob, when you were talking about we're not trying to replace people with automation. I think the difference right now to me is that we've had automation for like almost 100 years, right? I mean, since Ford started making cars almost, right? At least. I think the difference right now where people are more worried is some of the robotics look like people, right? Like they're small dogs or they're people jumping. And that's, I think, where it gets more real suddenly that that replacement of the worker. And even though I don't think that's the case at all, but it's just that right now that more and more that trying to look like actual humans or human helpers like dogs, right? So that's very I think to me that's the main thing that changes the game a little bit. When it's just a machine over in the corner that's automating something, but now it's a little bit different, I think.
You're right. I've noticed any type of company out there that wants to look suddenly smart, whenever they have a conference, they bring one of those Boston Dynamics dogs to their event and say, look at this, like they invented that or something. It's like, you guys didn't invent anything, but you got a Boston Dynamics dog and now you think you're smart. You are so right, though. Yeah, a lot of people are worried. You're right. Automation's always been here and we keep doing it. but a lot of people are worried that it's now happening at such an accelerated rate that people aren't going to be able to keep up, because there's always been automation, but it was been at a pace where you're going to keep educating yourself. And, you know, like when we talk about moving up the stack, right? I'm going to go do this higher level thing that I need a human brain for, and the mundane things are being done by robots or whatever. But no doubt about it, there's lots of talk that technology is now accelerating so fast and automation is happening so fast that people are going to be left behind. And that's a legitimate concern, and it's certainly worth talking about.
I mean, just look at the ChatGPT that suddenly came out of the blue, right?
Yeah.
And look at what it can do compared to, I mean, it can definitely automate a lot of tasks that I would want to do sometimes, right? And then when they talk about the OpenAI 4, I think it's going to be like 1,000 times faster, bigger, more information. I mean, just imagine the capabilities there. I think Microsoft banking on the right horse this time.
Yeah, because it can handle more data dimensions, like a trillion.
It depends. I mean, you know, AI is not intrinsically correct. It's probabilistic. It's not. It's not a basis of truth by any standard. In fact, that's a warning that a lot of deep AI experts make out there. I think one of the biggest misconceptions humanity can make is that somehow AI in any form has judgment, you know, and just because it does some really nice parlor tricks, and we saw some of that at CES, especially in Eureka Park, where people are jumping on the generative AI bandwagon. You know, are these things trustworthy? And who's actually testing the results, right? Yeah, it's great that it can pump out a poem. It's probably plagiarizing a bunch of other people's stuff.
Oh yeah, lots of stuff getting plagiarized.
Which they should probably compensate, right? Because it's a derived art. But you know, to intrinsically trust these things and not qualify the corpus of data and content that it's extracting its whatever the hell you call it intelligence from, that's dangerous.
Yeah, to me it's no help, right? No, absolutely.
Right? I mean, because
I think to me it would be like a helper, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, what? Sorry.
I said to me, I was thinking about it as a helper, right? I was talking to a colleague, saying an example. If I get an email where I know I'm going to spend 30 minutes to answer it, but I know the answer, if I can just pop that into ChatGPT, look at the answer, say, yeah, that's pretty close to what I would have said, boom, right? But it's still somewhere I know the answer, if it's right or wrong.
Yeah, but that's super basic, right? I mean, that's what a search engine can basically do for you.
Maybe.
You know,
but a search engine is
didn't we just see,
right?
Or a calculator.
Didn't ChatGPT just like get their MBA the other day or something like that?
Yeah, but that doesn't say much for the MBA school, does it? Right?
I mean, I know we're saying it's just basic stuff, but it's doing some pretty much more than basic stuff. It's getting all the data in the whole world, right? It's not always right, but
not really. It's not getting it from the whole world, and there's even disclosures and disclaimers about that. But the thing is that we have to all remember that technology can be applied in a way that's unproductive as well, and even destructive. And that's where we need to ask more questions versus, you know, the easy stuff, which is to fantasize about what these things do based on some very rudimentary understandings of the technology. You know, and you know, like these, like what do you call it, clickbait headlines that really drive the hype and misunderstanding of these technologies, right? And I think that number one is dangerous. Number two, it's for the people who pump that stuff out, that's disingenuous, or you know, in a lot of ways, because people who do that should be honest with themselves. You don't know what you're talking about, so stop, right? Because you can cause harm. That's what we need to be talking about as technology thought leaders and technology leaders. Okay, that's what thought leadership is about. It's not about coming up with nonsense that people subscribe to to do, scale out damage to society, right? And, one of the things that I think we need to be really cautious about with generative AI is the Tay effect. So if anybody remembers, Microsoft already did this kind of venture before by introducing a bot and connecting it to the Twitter corpus of junk, and it turned out to become a racist, hateful, foul-mouthed entity. What is to say that the same thing is not going to happen here? And whoever has, how can you even think that the internet is a source of truth?
That's where I get all my information.
Seriously, if that's what you think, you got to be seriously. You got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. You know what I'm saying? Nonsense, brother.
That whole Tay, when we made Tay, when I was at Microsoft then, and Tay was a person on Twitter, an account on Twitter, and you're right, she just absorbed the internet or what she saw on Twitter. And she went from being this kind of cute whatever to now people say, how many hours till Hitler is this AI? Because that's what happened with Tay. And it's a really sad indictment on humanity, because all she did was just absorb everything that was around her, without guardrails.
Yeah.
And she became a monster within, 24, 48 hours.
And
that's where
fast. Wow.
Yeah, again, we just need to be really careful, and then we also need to ask the more difficult questions, which actually requires some technical background and experience. And like what Rob was saying, you need to have either built the stuff or been in the background working with the companies to build the infrastructure. If you haven't done that, it's really difficult to see these things, right? And that's why it's easy to just kind of go with the hyped headlines and stuff like that. But there's a lot of potential. Don't get me wrong, useful stuff. But I mean, if you ever seen, if you say I asked Chat GTP or one of those OpenAI applications to give me a picture of Van Halen, okay, and it gave me 4 pictures, all of them with the wrong number of band members. And almost all of them deformed, really bad hair. I mean, really like Huey Lewis with a friggin' mullet. And you know what I'm saying? And one had 3 legs.
Yeah, so I was playing with one of those picture AIs too, and it was interesting how it combines the weirdest stuff together when you ask it something.
But we're going to trust that.
It's generated, right? It's not like it's going to find a picture. It's going to generate it from pictures, and so it will.
That's right.
Never be.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Don't ask it to find something you can just Google with Google Images and find the right image, right? But if you want something, it has to generate from some components that's not
right.
That you would appreciate the result, as opposed to in your case saying that's not right. That's That makes sense.
Yeah, and all this comes from the OpenAI folks. They gave you DALL-E 2, which is where you can say, draw me a picture of a raccoon wearing a sombrero, playing a guitar that looks like Eddie Van Halen's guitar, and it will do that for you. And then they also gave you Chat GPT, and it's all pretty crazy. And I know lots of people, including myself, got sucked into the Lensa app on your phone, which used where it created these cool, where you uploaded a bunch of your selfies, and then it created cool superhero versions.
I've never seen fantasy. You had those. Yep.
Lots of people all of a sudden all over Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook have all these crazy, they're an astronaut now or all kinds of stuff.
I actually asked you where you got that picture. So
there you go.
But hey, Rob, you make a awesome level 12 dwarf warrior. It's really super, killer D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
My mission is done here.
There you go.
All these different companies, there you go. You got it.
There we go. There we go. Yes,
hey, Rob, when you were talking about Tay from Microsoft, I heard that OpenAI, they actually tested OpenAI, I think, to a company in Kenya or South Africa to a company in San Francisco, exactly for that purpose, to find hate, to make sure they don't have hate speech or obnoxious or whatever.
Right.
So they ran that through, and that's why
Yeah.
ChatGPT hasn't become Hitler yet, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You also alluded to a whole lot of the people who were doing a lot of the manual work to make this stuff work. Where you're right, a bunch of people, I think in Nigeria, Kenya, or whatever.
Yeah, somewhere in Nigeria, Kenya,
and
whatever,
they were paid like almost no money. And yeah, that's the dark side of a lot of this as well. If you go back in time, when you had, how like the whole notion of a startup and fake it till you make it kind of thing, which may not be a good thing, but it's what happens. Old-timey AI startups who didn't really have AI, what they would do to try to prove out or validate their product idea. I don't know if it's still around, but some of you old-timers might remember Amazon Mechanical Turk, where basically you paid them and actual human beings behind the scenes are doing the work. And so AI startups would say, here's our product offering, and click this button in the app, and then what happened is they paid Mechanical Turk on Amazon, and humans scurried around and did the thing and then gave you an answer or whatever it was, the outcome you were looking for. And crazy stuff. Again, when you're doing a startup and you're creating a new product, obviously product validation is key to people actually want what you're about to build or sell, or are you wasting your time? And so I certainly remember that. And that was pretty interesting stuff for sure. Woo! I may have talked about
here. My fingers have warmed up.
It's getting hot in here. Yes.
Yeah. We got the guitar. Here we go.
Last week did I talk about NEOM with you guys, or autonomous with you guys when we were talking about CS?
Yeah, you mentioned autonomous. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So much of the stuff we're doing with IoT is building smart cities or trying to do that. Obviously, just like IoT in general has struggled sometimes, this whole smart city thing has, there was a lot of hope and excitement. And, obviously our good friend from Coffee Talk, Bill Pugh, he's obviously just killing it in smart cities. But a lot of people struggled with it. You have these futuristic visions of what a smart city would be and all the stuff you're going to do. And so then you go to City Hall and knock on the door and say, hey, we're going to do all this awesome stuff. And they're like, oh, great. Are you going to pay for it? Because we don't have any money. And, oh, yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But that whole NEOM thing in northwest Saudi Arabia, they have a lot of money. And that'll be interesting to see them build a smart city from scratch like that. That's pretty cool stuff for sure.
Everything I've seen from that just reminds me of sci-fi movies where you got these big cities underground or whatever, right? It's kind of reminds me of the whole concept. It'd be very interesting to see an area where there's no cars, right? So there's that's
why they have this thing called the line. And then they have everything's under the ground, like the transport, the infrastructure, and they call it the spine. Yeah, I covered this a long time ago, maybe 2 years ago, when one of my buddies, who's the executive director of emerging technology, he's joined. It's morphed a lot. It's changed. I mean, the whole project has changed significantly since I interviewed them.
It's pretty cool.
But back then it was 500 billion. It wasn't a trillion.
Well, now it's a trillion.
Yeah.
It was $500 billion, and now it's $1 trillion.
Yeah.
It's almost like a South or Saudi Arabian like moonshot project, because the things it's going to spin off of technologies are just going to be immense.
Yeah. And who knows? We can only speculate. Is Saudi Arabia kind of like the UAE, looking towards the end of oil and saying, hey, we need to start building something for the future? And we got Dubai, right? And Dubai is this magical place. And maybe the Saudi royal family is kind of having similar thoughts. I don't know, in building this futuristic city. Who knows? It's pretty interesting.
It's going to be completely self-contained, right?
They have a desalination plant right there on the ocean nearby. Because water's a thing over there, right? Yeah, and so it's pretty interesting.
So they're completely disconnected from everything. I haven't looked too much into it, but it's completely disconnected from everything else. It's its own entity.
Yeah. I mean, it's early days. Obviously, they're just doing earth moving right now and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the events that I was at related to hanging out with all those folks at CES, it was like there's an expectation that it'll go live. The city will be done by 2030. Fingers crossed. We'll see. They're also building some kind of resort thing up in some nearby mountains. And then also the ocean nearby, they may do something similar to, like when you think of Dubai, you know how they built that palm tree looking thing out in the ocean? I think they're going to be doing something like that as well. So yeah, it's very interesting.
That's awesome.
And so a lot of smart minds working through how to do all that stuff. It's super interesting. But yeah, Jens, like you talked about your underground cities, and this will be above ground somehow in the desert.
Because they talk about 100 mile plus wall, like a black wall crossing the desert, straight line, 10 stories high or something like that. It's going to be interesting, very interesting.
Oh yeah,
I think it's more than 10. I mean it's like literally like a skyscraper. Yeah.
I got, when I was at the dinner with all those folks, I did find myself having this opportunity to talk about an alternative to the line, or an alternative to Elon Musk saving humanity by sending everyone to Mars. I talked about how we could build underwater civilizations without it sounding like I'm some kind of sci-fi nerd. And, but I don't want to repeat myself, but probably the coolest thing I got to do, last year was pitch to DARPA. And so my pitch to DARPA, for those of you who don't know, it's this defense research deal, in Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia. They invented the internet and all kinds of insane tech, but it's military focused. And because I used to be in the military and I advise military folks like multiple times a year, I got to do this thing. But an alternative to cities in the desert or moving people to Mars, I pitched this idea, since I used to drive submarines, of how we could, with technology we have today, we could feasibly move people under the ocean. The ocean's kind of cold, actually. If we're worried about things getting a little hot upstairs, up here, or things like that, or water and all those issues, kind of along the lines of, we have nuclear energy. Our submarines could go almost indefinitely with that, to power all your systems. We take in seawater. We either desalinate it or use a still to make that into fresh water, get the salt out. These are all experiments kids can do in junior high school, by the way, to get fresh water for us to drink, to take showers, to cool your electronic systems. Then we use another process that you could also do as a kid experiment. Because I'm thinking you were talking about the Legos and kids. These are all experiments, and you can connect the dots and build a new future. It's crazy. There's electrolysis, where we take the H2O molecules and break them apart to get oxygen that we breathe. And then on the submarines, at least in the past, we would send the hydrogen overboard, but now we're all finding great uses for hydrogen for power. So we can do that. We've created CO2 scrubbers that take CO2 out of the air that we breathe and stuff like that. Most of the internet is actually on the ocean floor. A lot of people don't realize that. And so you can stay connected down there. But anyway, it was a cool thing. And I found myself getting to talk about that as not to stir the pot, but a little bit of an alternative to NEOM and the line about, here's another idea that might be insane, moving people under the ocean. We're continuously decommissioning all these Los Angeles class submarines across Puget Sound from Seattle from me at Bremerton Shipyard. And I was like, why don't we just kickstart this idea by grabbing one of those submarines that we were about to chop up into pieces and maybe put it at the ocean floor, maybe just right off the coast of San Diego, or maybe Florida, maybe just 100 feet down. And
it'll be like the International Space Station, except it's underwater.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like Rob Tiffany, the new Bond villain.
Yeah.
Remember that Bond movie with
Well, you know what?
Yes.
Here's the interesting thing. If you do live under the water, okay, like what Rob is suggesting, you don't have to eat seaweed forever. Okay. There's a number of companies, one out of Hong Kong, I think they call it Pingel or something like that. They have these little hydroponic devices for the home so that you can grow herbs in your house. Yeah. And it's all sensorized, intelligent, and you just put water in a couple of little capsules, and next thing you know, you have herbs.
And that's how I had to finish. That's how I had to finish my pitch, because on submarines, the only thing we were missing was food. We had to bring food with us, right? Everything else we produced ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, but currently we're seeing vertical indoor farming, hydroponic, aquaponic, stuff like that. You're seeing all kinds of things. And so to your point, Leonard, again, it's like taking Yen's Lego blocks and just connecting them together and going, hey, we can do this, right? It's totally feasible. The weird thing I didn't expect when I was having that conversation at this really fancy dinner is the guy sitting next to me was like a Hollywood producer, because it was like, you wouldn't believe the kind of people that were at this deal. And he's like, so Rob, can we make that? He goes, can you reach out to your people? He goes, do you like the show Survivor? And I go, yeah, that's cool. It's been going on a long time. He goes, yeah, we're kind of running out of cool things to do or places to go for Survivor. He goes, but man, if we could have people really just totally losing it underwater like they do in Survivor, that would be awesome.
God. So to add to it all, you have to play on loop Yellow Submarine. You know.
Yeah. And then he said to me, if you can put this whole thing together for under $100 million, we'll greenlight this thing, and we got the cash, and we'll make a TV show out of it of people living underwater. And I'm like,
that's what I'm
no
saying.
problem.
Rob Tiffany, the new Bond villain.
Be living with Rob.
Yeah, with nothing but glory to
your people
for a week.
Yeah. That's crazy stuff. Man. You know.
Sushi wrap.
So yeah, and I just want to be conscious of the time here.
Next time, Rob, I'll join you at that dinner. That'll be interesting.
Absolutely. You're so right. Oh my gosh. So what's the biggest thing
guys,
going
we
on
got
with
about
Industry
5 minutes left.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. We got about 5 minutes left. I know Leonard has to leave at the
I got a jam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys?
What's
the biggest thing going on these days with the Industry 4.0 with all your peeps and all the conversations you're having?
So right now, I think the biggest thing for us is that, as I mentioned earlier, we've been charged with running the Industry 4 part of IME West in Los Angeles in the second week of February, and so there's a whole agenda there where we are having a couple of panel sessions and a couple of presentation. Like I think it's a total of 8 or 9 that we are hosting, and we're gonna you'll see a couple of events here over the next couple of weeks where we're introducing some of those panelists and speakers, and then we're gonna be at the show as well, doing some presentations and small videos and stuff that's going on. So that's I think it's a second one where we're kind of engaged with another group. We're done with it, the IoT work. We've done a little bit with them, and now we're doing IME West as well. And so that's pretty cool.
It is really great. Cool. Yeah, we're doing a shift. I mean, so we were on Clubhouse quite a bit. We're moving a lot more into LinkedIn, getting a lot more out there as the individual members and contributors from the Industry 4.0 Club. But as Yen mentioned, really pulling together the larger community and putting them in the spots to be able to be highlighted at these different events and things is something it's been really great here recently. Cool. It's been awesome. Been great to really connect these different pieces together.
Yeah.
Do you have
four opponents, I think? Go ahead.
I'm curious of you guys having your finger on the pulse of Industry 4.0, the view. There's the original document by the German government many years ago, and I'm sure that's evolved. How are you guys seeing manufacturers following some of these principles and and embracing them and improving how they're doing manufacturing? Are you seeing that, or the people that routinely are hanging out with you guys in the club, do you get feedback that that's happening?
Yeah, I think it's every single manufacturer out there has their steps in this process, but I think as we talked before with you as well, most of what's going on is still Industry 3.0, right? It's really just what we've been doing all along, and then we're doing some small step IoT, getting data in the cloud, starting to think about AI and machine learning and those kind of things, right? But I think that the larger manufacturers are a lot further, right? And what we're trying to do is really trying to drive it to the small and mid-sized manufacturers, trying to figure out how can we connect them with experts and expertise out there that can help them improve what they're doing with small steps to start with, and then at some point. But I'm amazed. It was last year when Industry 5.0 was introduced, and we're like, oh.
Yeah, come on. Yeah. That's like saying, let's implement 7G in the network.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think 5G was introduced basically, I think, because what we talked before, that there's a lot of fear right now that this whole automation is going to replace the workers. So Industry 5 is taking that perspective in, that it's not about replacing workers, it's more making the worker more effective, and it's taking the whole aspect from the worker's perspective. But it's still far away. I mean, it's still in reality, I would call Industry 5 is Industry 4 plus.
I got a suggestion.
Yeah,
I got a suggestion. Just update the definition of Industry 4.0.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So I work for a European company, and we're heavily involved in Industry 4.0, kind of in the start. And I think in Europe there's a lot going on there. A lot of push towards digital twin of everything, right? And that's a lot of what it is. But I do think, at least in my conversations that I had as part of this club, as well as various communications I've had on LinkedIn and other places, that particularly, at least in North America, or maybe more specifically the US, the term Industry 4.0 and I would say IoT have become a little bit more synonymous. And it's more just the collection, the using, and the advocation of data to information to actually make process improvements. It's very different when you look at the letter of the law, like you mentioned, Rob, and I have these conversations with my German team. I wouldn't say regularly, but often enough. And there's just a little bit of a difference in the point of view, and there's also a difference in the countries and how we approach things in terms of data and what's available and how you can use different things, and just different walks of life. So
guys, I gotta jam. So if we're gonna wrap this up, let's do it now.
All right.
Okay. Well, hey guys, I really appreciate you guys joining us again, and I don't think we should let this be the last time. Maybe we can join you guys at some point.
Yeah.
Sure.
On your podcast. Yeah, sure. That'd be fun too. And I enjoyed you guys, and we'll have another one later on when we think this has been a little bit off. We just have a great conversation, right? We didn't necessarily specify a whole topic, whatever. We just had a great conversation. I hope everybody that listened got something out of it. I definitely got a whole lot of great stuff out of it, and I had fun. So all great stuff. Appreciate you guys, and let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. This was great.
Hey,
Thanks
I
so
don't
much.
know how to do it.
I don't know what you were doing. You were like flashing.
I'm trying to give you guys the little K-pop heart thingy, and I have I think that's it right there. Yeah.
I think I was right. He's flashing gang signs at the end. He's dissing Industry 4.0 with gang signs, I think.
Canceled. Just he's canceled.
Okay, guys.
All right,
this
guys.
was great, y'all.
Take care. Yeah.